I need to tell you about the night I realized I had a problem. It wasn't a dramatic problem. Nobody was arrested. Nobody was crying in a hospital. And there was definitely no intervention. I was just angrily staring at a microwave. It was about 2 in the morning. I had food in there. It needed 75 seconds. And I was annoyed. Like, genuinely annoyed. I was standing there thinking, come on, why is this thing taking so long? 75 seconds. Apparently, I had reached a point in my life where 75 seconds felt like an unreasonable delay. And then I had this horrible little moment of self-awareness because what exactly was I rushing to? Was somebody waiting outside in the kitchen with a stopwatch? Was the FBI going to kick my door down because my burrito wasn't ready? No, I was just uncomfortable being still. And that was when I realized I had started microwaving my entire life. My work, business, my creativity, my goals, my healing, my future. Everything needed to happen immediately. I wanted the idea to become a business, the business to become successful, the success to become meaningful, and preferably before Thursday. And I don't think I'm the only one. We've become incredibly impatient with the process of becoming. We put everything on high. We stare through the little glass window and then we panic because the outside is burning while the middle is still frozen. So today, we're talking about something I've had to learn the hard way. The art of the slow rise. Because maybe your life isn't moving too slowly. And maybe you've just forgotten that some things take time. And I need to tell you what happened when I finally realized that. There was a season when I was building Digitax Creatives and I somehow convinced myself that being overwhelmed was evidence that I was serious. I had client work, web development, digital marketing, content, idea for products, idea for more products, and then naturally ideas for things I hadn't even finished building yet. My brain was basically a startup incubator with no fire exit, and I was proud of it. That's the part I don't love admitting. Somebody would ask, "How are you?" And I'll say, "Busy." Like it was qualification, like busy meant important. Like if I wasn't exhausted, perhaps I wasn't trying hard enough. So I started doing that thing ambitious people do when they have absolutely no idea how tired they are. I added systems. I made plans. I reorganized things. I created lists to manage the lists. I had a list for things I needed to do, then a list for things I needed to do before I could do the things on the first list. At some point, I was basically project managing my own nervous breakdown. And whenever I felt behind, I didn't stop, I sped up. If I was tired, I worked later. If I was confused, I researched more. If I wasn't sure what direction to take, I opened another tab. Because here's the thing I eventually had to admit. I wasn't always being productive. Sometimes I was hiding inside productivity. That one hurts. Because being busy gave me something to point at. Look, I'm working. Look, I'm building. Look, I'm doing something. But if I stopped, I might actually have to hear myself think. I might have to ask, do I still want this? Is this working? Why am I doing it this way? What am I actually trying to build? And the question I really didn't want to ask, what if I don't need to do all this? So I kept moving until my brain finally said, absolutely not. I remember sitting on my desk one day, opening my computer ready for work, and nothing happened. I stared at the screen. I tried to write, nothing. I tried again, Nothing. So I did what any sensible person would do. I checked something that didn't need checking. Then I checked something else. Then I reorganized something. Then I probably changed a font somewhere that absolutely didn't need changing. And hours passed. I hadn't really created anything. I was just there. And eventually I realized I wasn't out of ideas. I was out of capacity. My brain wasn't being difficult. It was tired. And that was the moment I had to face something incredibly humbling. I had been building for the next minute instead of building for the next decade. I was asking, how quickly can I get there? Instead of, what would it take to build something I can actually sustain? Those are completely different questions. Here's what I've been thinking about ever since. Sometimes we rush because we're excited, but sometimes we rush because we're afraid. And those two things can look almost identical from the outside. You can look ambitious while internally you're panicking. You can look disciplined while secretly you're terrified of falling behind. You can actually look confused while actually avoiding uncertainty because speed gives anxiety where to go. Think about it. You're uncertain about your career, work harder. You're worried about your business, launch something. You don't know what you want, make another plan. You're feeling behind, fill your calendar. There is always something to do, and doing something feels much better than sitting with, I don't know. I don't know when this is going to work. I don't know if I'm making the right decisions, and I don't know whether I even want this anymore. So we move, because movement feels like control. And sometimes movement is just fear wearing active wear. And that's why slowing down can feel strangely threatening, because when you stop moving, the noise gets quieter and then you can hear things you've been avoiding. Maybe you're exhausted. You need help. The strategy isn't working and you need to change direction. Or maybe you don't actually want what you thought you wanted. And the last one, that one can be terrifying, especially after you spent months or years telling everyone what you're building, because now you have to admit, actually, I think I want something different. But I would rather hear the truth while I'm still able to change direction than build an entire life around a goal I was too scared to question. Speaking of goals, there's another way we end up rushing: other people. You know that feeling? You have a perfect morning, you're drinking coffee, and maybe you're working, and you're definitely minding your business, and then you open your phone and somebody has launched something. Somebody else got the clients. Someone is announcing a huge milestone. And then again, another person has bought a house. Someone wrote a book. Someone built a 6-figure business while apparently sleeping 8 hours a night and drinking green tea. And you're happy for them. You really are. But then something tiny happens inside you. Oh, I'm behind. Suddenly you aren't building your life anymore. You're trying to catch up to someone else's. I've done this. I've looked at someone else's progress and suddenly questioned my own, because I genuinely wanted what they had. Their progress made me uncomfortable with my own pace. And there's one important distinction here. Sometimes you see somebody doing something amazing and think, that's beautiful. Maybe I want something like that. That's inspiration. But sometimes you see somebody else doing something amazing and think, God, I need to do more. That's something else. That's panic with Wi-Fi. Panic is a terrible business strategist. It will have you changing your plans every 3 days, starting things you don't have capacity for, buying things you don't need, creating content you don't even enjoy. And suddenly you're running around trying to become the version of yourself you think the internet will approve of. Meanwhile, the actual you is sitting somewhere in the corner whispering, "Girl, when did you agree to this?" That's why comparison is dangerous. It doesn't just make you feel bad. It can make you make decisions, bad decisions. You can start building a life you don't even want because somebody else's timeline scared you. And that's when I realized I don't need somebody else's speed. I needed to know what my pace was. Think about a cathedral. Not because we need to become unnecessarily dramatic, although I am absolutely going to become unnecessarily dramatic. Think about the kind of building people walk into and instinctively lower their voice. The kind of architecture that makes you stop. Those places weren't built because somebody said, "Guys, we need this finished by Thursday." The people building them knew something we've forgotten. They were laying stones for a structure they might never see completed. There was no analytics, no viral moments. Nobody slid into their DM saying, "Hey, what are your 5 tips for scaling this cathedral?" They just worked, stone by stone, day by day, and maybe what we need to remember, we're trying to microwave cathedrals. We want the career, the business, the body, the art, the audience, the perfect relationship, the healing, the wisdom, the legacy, and we want it all to become visible immediately. Then we look at one bad week and decide we're failing. Here's the problem. We're evaluating our lives at the scale of a Tuesday. Think about it. A bad Tuesday, a slow month, a quiet launch, a week where you didn't feel motivated, a year where things didn't happen the way you imagined. And suddenly, I'm behind. No, you're looking at a tiny piece of a very large story. A bad month isn't the scale of a career. A quiet season isn't the scale of a life. A slow year isn't proof that nothing is happening. Some of the most important things happening in your life will look completely unimpressive while they are happening. Roots are like that. Nobody stands over a seed screaming, "Why are you not a tree yet?" Well, some of us do. We just call it goal setting. But the seed isn't failing, it's becoming. And that distinction matters because slow doesn't mean nothing is happening. Sometimes slow means the foundation is finally getting time to catch up with the vision. So let me ask you something. What is the invincible stopwatch you've been carrying? Because I think almost all of us have one. Maybe yours says, "I should have figured this out by now." Or, "I should be making more money." "I should have launched already." "I should have grown faster." "I should be more consistent." "I should be further ahead." "I should have my life together." But who wrote that deadline? Seriously, who decided? Who gave you the date? And what happens if you don't meet it? Sometimes what we call ambition is actually disappointment wearing a nice blazer. You're grieving the version of yourself you thought you'd be by now. In your mind's eye, you thought you'd be more figured out. The business would be bigger, you'd be more confident, you'd have more money, and you'd be somewhere else. Instead of saying, "I'm disappointed," we say, "I need to work harder." Sometimes you don't need another productivity strategy. Sometimes you need to admit, I'm sad that this is taking longer than I thought. That's different, and it's okay. You don't have to turn every difficult emotion into a project. You just need to tell the truth. You're disappointed. Maybe you're tired, scared, impatient, you're jealous, and maybe you're grieving a timeline you thought was guaranteed. Fine. Name it. Then build from reality, not from the fantasy of where you thought you'd be, and definitely not from the person you saw online this morning, or from the imaginary version of yourself who apparently wakes up at 5 a.m., journals for 45 minutes, drinks lemon water, closes 7 deals, reads a book, and still has time to make homemade granola. That woman is not your manager. Build from where you actually are. So, here's what I want you to do. Right now, not tomorrow, not after you've finished everything. Right now, grab your notes app or a piece of paper and answer these 3 questions. Don't make the answers pretty. Don't write what sounds nice. Tell the truth. Question 1. What am I rushing? Your business? Your career? A decision? A relationship? Your healing? Your entire existence? Write it down. Now, question 2. What am I afraid will happen if I slow down? This is the important one because underneath the stopwatch, there is usually fear. Maybe if I slow down, I'll fall behind. If I slow down, somebody else will take the opportunity, or I'll lose my momentum. If I slow down, people will think I'm falling. Or maybe if I slow down, I'll discover I don't actually want this. Write the ugly answer. The answer you wouldn't put on Instagram. And finally, what would I build differently if I trusted that I had time? What changes? What would you say no more often to? Would you make the thing better instead of faster? Would you stop copying somebody else's strategy? Would you actually rest, learn, experiment? Or would you let yourself be bad at something for a while? Would you stop trying to prove that you're serious? Because the life you would build, if you weren't terrified of running out of time, might tell you something about the life you actually want. I want to leave you with this. You're not behind. And yes, I know that sentence has been printed on approximately 14 million beige Instagram graphics. But I'm saying it because it sounds comforting. I'm saying it because your life is not a race against somebody else's calendar. You don't have to turn every season into evidence of your worth. You don't have to make every idea profitable immediately or become impressive as quickly as possible. You don't need to sprint because somebody else is running. Remember my microwave? The ridiculous 75 seconds that apparently offended my whole existence, it taught me something. Just because something isn't ready yet doesn't mean it's failing. Some things need heat. Some things need practice, and some things need repetition, rest, and time. And some things actually need you to stop opening the door every 30 seconds to check whether they're done. Maybe that's what you're doing, checking. Is it working yet? Am I successful? Am I healed yet? Am I there yet? Has it happened? And every time you check, you interrupt the process. So maybe for a little while, just close the door. Let the thing cook. Let yourself learn. Let your business grow. Let that idea become clearer in your mind and your confidence catch up. Let your roots go down and your life become something you can actually live inside. Because the slow rise isn't failure. It isn't laziness or lack of ambition. Sometimes the slow rise is what allows you to become strong enough to hold what you've been asking for. And tomorrow you can still work hard. You can still build, you can still make the big move, but ask yourself one question before you do. Am I doing this because it's right for me or because I'm afraid I'm behind? That's the difference. And if you want something tangible to help you practice this, instead of feeling inspired for 19 minutes and then immediately opening 17 new tabs, I've left a few resources in the show notes. There's the $5 alignment and pace tracker, which you can use to map your life without turning your life into a military operation. There's also the free sanctuary wallpapers. If you want your digital space to feel a little less like Times Square at rush hour, use them if they're useful. Ignore them if they're not. I'm not trying to give you another thing to optimize. I'm trying to remind you that your life is allowed to have a pace. A real one. One your body can live with, your creativity can survive, and one your future self will thank you for. So, drop the stopwatch. Stop measuring your entire life against one Tuesday and let it rise. You don't have to microwave your life. Some things are worth cooking slowly. Stop microwaving your life. The art of slow rise. Some things are worth cooking slowly.